All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutation to the Akim and to the elect that are scattered throughout the four corners of this earth, pushing the truth and faith and in all sincerity. I'm the brother Shema Allah from the GMS Houston camp, and this is going to be Scripture of the Day lesson, going into James, first chapter, right? The second verse, to the fourth verse. Okay. And through the spirit, this lesson is entitled, joyful in temptations. Okay, and we'll get into it. So this is James 1 and 2. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations. All right. So it says, count it all joy. All right. Now, when you think about, being, joyful, you think it as something that's being like pleasant, right? Thinking it as something like being happy, or, excited, right? And when you go into this word, right, joy, gladness, right? The joy received from you, the cause or occasion of joy, cheerfulness, gladness. All right. So you think it's basically you look at it as it's a good situation, you know, hara, right? Which technically it is, all right. Even though it might not feel well, but it's not saying that, you just, jumping up and screaming for, joy and excitement, you know, that's not what it's talking about. But, you just got to understand, that it's deeper than, what you are going through. All right. It's deeper, than the situation. Okay. You can't look at it on a surface level. All right. But you got to look at it with a spiritual eye. Okay. And then you will begin, to understand, what's going on, and why these things, are happening. All right. You understand, why the Lord is bringing a certain thing upon you. All right. But you just got to, pay attention, pay attention to yourself, right? Pay attention to your weaknesses. Okay. As the scriptures say, we're supposed to examine ourselves. And these are things that, we're supposed to do, constantly. All right. But it says, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, right? The trying of your faith. So, like the scriptures say, gold being tried in the fire is the same thing with your faith. The tribulations, right? And the hardships and the pain, all of this is trying your faith. Okay. It's your faith being put, to the flame, so to speak. Okay. And it's all to see where you're at and to increase you. Because a person who is not sincere in this thing, they're going to be overthrown and overcome, all right, by that tribulation. But the ones whom, are, like I said, sincere, they have their faith, right? They want to be obedient. Okay. There's the spirits are right. Ultimately, the elect. All right. That tribulation is going to build them up and work on, their patience, give them that endurance, all right, that perseverance. Okay. When you go into patience,
Strong's G 5281. Hupamane. Hupamane.
it should be hypomone. I can't hear it on this side. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't matter as long as we get the definition. Steadfastness, constancy, endurance. All right. In the New Testament, the characteristic of a man who is not swerved from his deliberate purpose, which our purpose is this truth. All right. And his loyalty to faith and piety by even the greatest trials and suffering. So you're not easily moved. by the troubles that you go through. All right. Sustaining perseverance. So this is what it builds up when you go through things, right? It's building up that endurance, right? The Most High is working on you. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai is working on you. Okay. And it's all, for your betterment, to make you better, in this thing. Okay. Which ultimately, is going to increase your faith as well. All right. Because the Lord is going to be showing you, that He's dealing with you. But even though these things may not feel nice, may not feel good, in the end, it will be. Brothers always use the example of working out, right? It does not feel good, pushing your body, to its limits. It doesn't feel good, like running a lot of miles and, keeping yourself in shape, right? You gotta have the willpower first and foremost to even want to, do something like that. You gotta have the discipline as well. All right. But even though it doesn't feel good, that the end result, you will feel better, you will look better. It's the same thing with this. That's why what Paul said, what e- exercise, bodily exercise profit a little. Okay. Let's just get it real quick so I won't misquote. Bodily exercise profit a little, but godliness profit. Let's see. Exercise. For bodily exercise profit a little, but godliness is profitable into all things, having promise of the life that now is, and of that which is come. And the reason I'm bringing this scripture out because, it has the bodily exercise and basically this truth, right, in one sentence, comparing them to one another. All right, because they're likened unto, the same thing, but there's truth, it's much more, and it's much more better. Okay. Because, bodily exercise, we want to remain healthy. We want to work out and do all of these things. Okay. But this doesn't get us anywhere spiritually, which it aids unto how you feel, but it doesn't get you into the kingdom. All right. It doesn't grant you salvation. All right. But this, spiritual exercise will. Okay. And us going through trials and tribulations is like a spiritual exercise, right? Those faith muscles, are being worked. But it says James 1:4, but let patience have a perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. All right, so you don't lack anything. The Lord is basically putting you through things to give you the spiritual tools that you need to keep going. All right. The characteristics that, He wants to see in you, that He wants to see you have. That's why everybody's situation is different, because the Lord is working on them, in a different way. All right. So just when you are in these things, man, just let the Lord do what He do. Like they say, let Him cook. you know, because even when you're cooking the meal, you got to put heat to it. You got to add this ingredient, that ingredient. You got to put it in there in this time because you don't want to overdo it. It's the same thing with us. Okay. The Lord knows how long He can leave us, in a particular situation before, we need to be taken out of it, right? Because He knows our limits. All right. But when we're taken out, that flame, all right, we're going to be perfected, in that particular, situation. Okay. Now you are better. Now you are upgraded spiritually. So that's the lesson. I hope this lesson was edifying, to you all. With that, I'm gonna say, hey, shalom.